a couple of new cases this week. Yeah, so Aaron, I am driving, but I'm not really sure kind of like
how look out. We'll see how this goes.
I think probably where I can be most useful is just giving the visa wastage data update for those who haven't been following me on Twitter. Let's see if I can figure out how to do this. Let's see. Share screen. Chrome tab. Where are we? Where is this thing here? This is not easy to use. I'm looking through all my Chrome tabs and I don't see this one here. Well, are you seeing this or are you not seeing anything yet?
I'm not seeing any banner, no.
Okay. It's not the banner. I'm trying to share the website.
Oh, no.
But I don't see that up here. Well, I can do entire screen. How does that? Nothing.
No.
Share. Now, how do you see this?
Still no.
Really? Oh my God. All right. Well, I'm going to describe what I'm seeing on my screen here for people that unfortunately it would be easier, I think, if I could just show it to you, but it's not letting me do that. Well, one more thing I'm going to check before I give up on that. Share screen, entire screen. All right. Now do you see it?
Still no.
Holy crap. All right. Well, all right. So I'm not going to force people to suffer anymore. We have gone a couple of days without any change, I think, because of a Labor Day holiday. But we have 119 people or cases out of 276 that remain pending. So I guess that's about 40%. We had a lot of activity last week. If you go back until like the 30th of the month, we went from 135 to 157. So that's what we have seen is although the numbers are looking good as far as daily approvals, and at the pace we're going, we should finish up before the end of the month. I did hear from somebody. I asked last week for you to let us know if you are not current for some reason. That it's that you have the person, and I heard from one person who they're waiting on an EB2 I-140 to be approved, and they just upgraded to premium processing, and they're still waiting on that. I want to know that because I'm largely trying to figure out like how many people we are really waiting on and how many people are not going to be able to be approved until they get that priority date current, which may be, after October 1st. So I don't think there's very many people in that situation. I think there's just a handful. And I'm trying to determine that so that we can, and we'll go back and do a deeper dive into each person that's left when the number gets smaller. But we have also heard from people who I asked you to tell me about your weird situations that are not being reflected in the status reports. For example, cases where spouses have been sent off to different field offices and one person's been approved and the other spouse hasn't been approved. We're trying to flag those for the DOJ lawyer, things like that, where there's not just that I'm getting worried my case is getting close to being finished, it's getting close to the end of the month and I still have not heard anything. We have flagged for the DOJ all of his old cases. I have a separate spreadsheet that I have with about 35 cases that I had listed as the lagging cases. I started that about a week ago, and we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of it started at 42 cases, and 7 of them got saw movement after they hadn't seen movement. I basically picked any cases that hadn't seen any movement after June 1st. On there sort of was the benchmark I use for the cases that are sort of the super laggers on there. We have one person still who hasn't seen any action since 2020. That is considerably down from about 2 weeks ago. And we have some that are still sort of early 2021 folks. So that's what I can tell you as far as that goes. I would expect now that the holiday is over, we'll probably see some pent up activity today. And I will post. I've been posting on Twitter each day. I didn't post it after Friday because it was the holiday weekend and there was no activity. But I'll begin again tonight, basically doing a daily update on where we are on those cases. So, Aaron, what are we from a procedural point of view on Madivan? Where are we at this point?
So we have the, well, I'm sorry, I'm deep in the DV stuff right now. I'm trying to remember what the last filing was. Let me pull it up here.
I think September 9th was a critical date for a deadline for the government, but I may be wrong on that.
Yeah, they have something due. I'll pull it up, but I can come back to it.
Yeah,
I'll pull up the actual documents.
I mean, at this point, we are seeing some pretty good response from the DOJ lawyer. So my guess is that the judge is probably going to be looking at that as well. And I'm guessing that the judge is probably going to want to just deal with this by getting a progress report.
Yeah, sorry about that. The response actually should come today on the motion for preliminary injunction or summary judgment in the alternative. So we'll see. It would have been due yesterday, but because of the holiday, they get today. And then September 9th, Friday, is the date that it goes. It becomes ripe for adjudication.
And we're expecting the response largely to be that they are rapidly approving these cases. But what I'm hoping we'll see is some data in the response backing that up. That maybe some data that we haven't seen yet. So that's one thing we're going to be on the lookout for. But you have the goal is to get all our plaintiffs adjudicated first. That's always our first goal, and the second is to get the help everybody else because this was a class case. But to the extent that at least on getting the government to use up all the numbers before the end of the fiscal year, I think that we're happy with what we're seeing.
Yeah.
And the government, I'd like to see more data from the government on it so we can really verify what's happening. But it does seem like, the pace that they're going looks like they have a shot at using up most of the numbers. But we'll see. They have, I think as of the middle of August, it looked to me like they had about 50 to 60,000 left, and they were doing about 10,000 a week. And there were 6 weeks left. So if they were keeping up that pace, then they're going to use up the numbers, which is great. We'd much rather have them use up the numbers than have to make a claim to get them to reserve numbers. So, all right, Aaron, let's switch over to Go and just DV in general. But I'm looking for Chuck's banners on here.
I'll start talking about the Go. So the hearing date for oral argument is the 16th, so 10 days from now. There are a whole list of lawyers who are going to be arguing pieces of it. Jesse Bless will be doing kind of the bulk of the arguments on 212F and reservation, and then there will be some ancillary issues. Chuck is going to be arguing for additional visas for Go plaintiffs. And just so people know, we will not get a decision on the 16th. We won't get a decision for probably around 3 months after the hearing. That's kind of typical. Could be more, could be less. There's no deadline for the court to rule, but that's just kind of what we tend to see. So it's going to be a little while after the 16th, but you should be able to tune in and listen to oral arguments on the 16th.
How about DV 2022?
Yeah, DV 2022, we have 13 plaintiffs in our Bouge Boer case that are still unscheduled. We are expecting briefing to be complete for both sides on a motion for preliminary injunction by the 23rd of September, requesting that the court put in an emergency order for anybody who hasn't been scheduled / adjudicated by the end of the year. So that's what's next on DV 2022. All of our plaintiffs are categorized as AV, meaning according to the government, a visa has been allocated, a visa number has been allocated to their case, and the only thing missing is getting them in for an interview and getting the visa adjudicated. There's, the better part of September left. They can do this if they want to. They can make it happen, and we're asking the judge to order them to make it happen.
All right. Well, the fingers crossed that the government will do will do this the easy way rather than the hard way, and just get these people finished. We also are doing an onboarding for just two small groups of plaintiffs that are in administrative processing. They've already been interviewed, and we're just trying to get them across the finish line. This is a little bit different than other kinds of cases, and there have been some lawyers that are talking about like, well, we're not going to file a case at this point because of the allocations have already been done and all that. And that's and I don't think that this is in that category what we're talking about, because these are people who have already been interviewed. They're in administrative processing. They've already provided whatever evidence that the government has asked for. So there's usually the argument is that you can't, that the getting somebody to the point of getting an interview is super time consuming for the government, and they, and the judge is not going to force them to do that. But this is in a smaller group that should be easier to hopefully get some action. But for these people, it's pretty much, I guess, still it's still a long shot, I think, for some of these folks that on here, but it's basically litigation is the only option, and it might, and we think it could work, but this is one of those where there's really not much choice left. There's no other options if this doesn't happen. All right, Aaron, what else do we want to bring up at this point? Any action? And there's nothing paying to talk about for the EAD case, right?
No, nothing there. Any updates on Ukraine?
No. Well, we were planning on getting a preliminary injunction filed. We have had some behind the scenes communications happening on that case. So we are. I really can't give an update right now as far as what the nature of that is, but that's one of the reasons why we have held off a couple of days on the preliminary injunction on there. So I'm optimistic still that the government's going to do the right thing, because I think the statute's pretty clear, and hopefully we'll have some good news to report on that soon.
Should we get through the questions?
Yeah, I just want to also just say in K1 Minnow, I believe that we are wrapped up on that one. We had one person that was left that we were trying to reach, and I believe that has been resolved. So I'm happy that case is finally we can put that one to rest. So we'll probably be filing a motion to dismiss on that case pretty soon. Yeah, let's get to some questions. We're going to, and still no Chuck. So let's see what we got. So we just talked about that, the Go appeal. And this Puya is asking, is there only one hearing in the appeal? And yes, it's basically
all consolidated. So
September 16th, and that will be the only day of arguments, and then we wait. Venezuelan TPS renewals. Well, we're not suing on that. And I haven't heard, I've been sort of just following like everybody else is, but I don't think we have any news on that one to report yet. Okay. Somebody's asking about applying for DACA. We're not going to get into that here. Any updates for first-time applicants for DACA? So I will I will just say, just in general, right now on that. So we have a rule that has been put out that essentially just keeps DACA in place as with the existing rules that were in the memo, and that is in front of the Fifth Circuit right now, which I think will either they're either going to overrule the Judge Hannon, or they're going to send it back to Judge Hannon and say, take a look at the new rule, or they're going to agree with Judge Hannon. We don't know yet. Some way, somehow or another, it's probably going to the Supreme Court. They were very careful not to expand DACA in any way in the rule that just came out. That's because of the litigation. They didn't want to make any new issues for the court to then make a decision about. But my guess is that if they can survive a litigation with the existing rules, then what we will probably see is a new rule at some point expanding eligibility. That's probably going to be a while. So for right now, unfortunately, I think the question is asking whether, whether anything's changing for. I think if a first-time applicant was going to come in, they would still have to qualify under the old rules as far as when they entered the United States and the age and all that other stuff. So I think the question is probably asking when are they going to expand it to allow more people to apply that weren't eligible previously. And for right now, we don't have an answer on that. Okay. Aaron, I'm looking through the questions here, and I'm trying to see where we have a new one.
I see a number on DV22, so let me address those kind of all together.
Okay.
The one that I'm looking at says, are we happy with what they're doing? What about plaintiffs with lower case numbers who haven't been scheduled? And then relatedly, the question is, well, if the briefing is finished on the 23rd, it doesn't leave enough time for interviews. So let me address those. So first of all, are we happy with what they do? We're not happy if we have plaintiffs who haven't been scheduled. Are we happy with how the DV program has gone compared to how it was going in February when we filed this case? Yes, they're going to get very close to issuing 55,000 visas. That's a good thing. That's a good thing that many of our plaintiffs have benefited from, as well as others. As far as the timeline, what we have to do on these cases is get an order when it's not considered premature. So if you file an order for a preliminary injunction with months to go before the fiscal year, they're going to argue that it's premature because they may be getting to this, so that kind of urgent relief is not appropriate. So we have to do it at the end of the fiscal year. But as part of that, we'll say, get them in on an emergency basis, or reserve the visas because they've already been allocated, and have them allocate the visas after the end of the fiscal year. So that's what we'll be asking for. That's what we are asking for. And that's what the judge will be deciding towards the end of the fiscal year. And if you remember from past years, the judge waits to issue these orders until basically the very end. That's just how the cases are handled.
Aaron, I mean, it's also conceivable now, because the last couple of years, that we could see a reservation of a couple of visas at
exactly.
The plaintiff. So, and
we don't have a lot. So, I mean, it won't be a big ask if we're asking for reservation as far as numbers. It's not like previous years.
Yeah, it's just going to probably be for the specific plaintiffs. It's not
right.
going to be like in prior years where there was an allocation that was supposed to be for a large group of people that should have been interviewed and gotten visas that weren't. So it'll be just a handful if there's reservation that happens at all.
Correct. Okay.
All right. I don't know if, let's see. Do I think USCA will speed up cases, non-green cards after September, spouse and fiancés, et cetera? I do think that they are putting a lot of resources right now, but into getting these tens of thousands of cases adjudicated. But a lot of that's happening at the local offices. So I don't think that I think the regional centers should be operating relatively close to normal, because they're not the ones that are doing the heavy lifting right now on all those cases that are being adjudicated. But I never make predictions that USCIS is going to improve. They at this point, they always seem there's always a new excuse around the corner. So we don't have COVID anymore. I don't know if they say that by the end of, they said, would urge you to, and I don't have any reason to believe this is not accurate, has said that they will be at 95% employment. They had a 20% gap at USCIS in open positions this past June when she spoke to the American Immigration Lawyers Association. She said that by the end of the year, and she didn't say fiscal year or calendar year, so I'll give her the benefit of the doubt and assume calendar year, that they would be at 95%. And if that's the case, then we should see improvements, because even though that's a lot of new people who probably don't know what they're doing, there's just a lot more bodies, and a lot of these cases are not all that complicated to adjudicate, such as an employment authorization document. But we haven't had any updates lately as far as whether they really are going to meet that target or not, and when they're going to meet that target. So I think that's probably the biggest factor in how quickly things are going to get back to normal. USCIS is not, these backlogs. The backlogs will cause problems for a long time, but just in terms of, generally moving things, I think that's a big factor is personnel. And the other big factor is e-filing and how quickly they move along to getting cases done that way. Because every time you e-file a case, it means that a USCIS employee doesn't have to manually enter all that information into their system. And that is, that's a huge labor savings that they should be able to. And we have seen the data on that for naturalizations and some other categories where that are e-filed, that those cases have much better processing times and haven't really suffered that much during the pandemic as just the paper-based filings have. So that's how I would answer that. And I think, Aaron, we don't have a lot of questions today. I guess people don't see Chuck here, so they're shy about it. But we will, well, actually next week, Tuesday, I will be out somewhere in the Pacific on there. So I won't be here probably next Tuesday. Chuck may or may not be, or maybe I'll do it with Chuck because we're going to the same destination. I'm not sure if I leave Tuesday or Wednesday. So if I'm able, I'll be here. Otherwise, Aaron, you and Jesse might be holding down the fort next week.
All right.
All right.
Sounds good. Thanks all.
Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.